All right, so I'm gonna teach you how to throw your very first cylinder. You're gonna start off with, I have right here 1.5 pounds of clay, anywhere from 1/2 pound to 1.5 pounds of clay, already wedged up or fresh from the bag is perfect. I want you to take your clay and you're gonna basically make a cone shape by smacking that clay into your hand just to give us a nice even ball to work with, gumdrop to work with, just to set yourself up for success, right? So you're gonna take your sponge and you're gonna wet your bat or your wheel head. This little vocab, this is your wheel head, splash pans, tower, and now we've got our wad of clay. You might find it handy to have a towel, an apron, or something to wipe your hands on. So we're going to take this gumdrop shape and we're gonna throw it right there on the wheel head. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna wet our finger, our index finger right here, and we're going to press it up against the lip right here, where the clay meets the wheel head. We're just gonna take our finger right there and press it right in. Okay? From there, what we're going to do, we're going to kind of wet our hands, and you'll see me throughout this process. I'm going to wet my hands or wet the clay or wet the bat. I'm doing so sparingly, but we're basically just trying to reduce friction. We're going to center the clay. This is your foundation. A lot of beginners really want to rush over this step or move past this step really quickly. It's the most difficult part to learn, but it's the most fundamental part to learn. And once you can center, you can throw. I here have my wheel propped up a little bit. Some wheels might sit a little lower, but depending on your height and where you're at, some people like to dig into their thighs, right? I'm going to kind of hinge with, good back posture, right? But for your first time, I really just want you to focus on finding a place to anchor yourself. So elbows in tight, holding yourself nice and steady. We're going to put a little pressure on that pedal, basically going to push that clay in a strong direction. Really, the biggest thing we're focusing on is staying grounded and keeping our hands still. That motion of keeping our hands really, really still and pressed up against that clay is what's going to center it. So it's gonna look a little something like this. You're taking the meaty part of your hand, you're pressing it up against the wheel head and up against that clay. The hand on top, you're going to anchor it somehow, whatever's comfortable, to your left hand. So we're gonna push, we're pushing. That right hand is sitting on top, just keeping it from getting taller, right? We're putting pressure inwards so the clay wants to go taller. In order to keep it just from going taller and wobbly, we're going to keep our other hand right here. Now, if you're knocking all over the place, moving around a lot, I want you to take a moment. We're gonna regroup doing something called coning. Okay, so this is a process that some potters always will do to center. They'll use it as like a wedging technique, right? I think it's personal preference, whatever works easiest for you to center. Okay, to cone, right, we're going to take our two hands, anchored in, always anchored in. We're gonna bring that clay up nice and tall. We're not worried about getting it super center right now. We're just bringing it tall so that we have something to push down and center. So you want to be really careful when you're doing this to watch that top of your piece and not introduce a big air bubble. So now we've got a nice tall cone, and some of you guys might find this easier to then push down and center. This also can help if that clay's feeling a little stiff, maybe it's been a little cold, maybe it's a little dry. But then at this point, people will ask me, okay, Janelle, how do I know if it's centered? And the way you'll know how it's centered is very, very tactile. So basically, the way to test it is you're going to dip your hands in your water and you're going to gently rest them at full speed on your centered clay. if it glides, you're not moving around, if your hands can hold really easily and steady without needing to brace it, you're centered. We've got our centered clay. There's a lot of different ways people can open. Throughout this process now that we've centered the clay, you want to pay a lot of attention to not knocking that clay off center. So when we were centering, we're spinning that wheel full speed. When we're starting to do things like opening, pulling up walls, shaping the vessel, we want to go a little slower, make sure we're taking our time and keeping our hands steady because we don't want to knock it off center and the whole thing collapse. Okay, so me personally, I take my thumbs and I dig them right in. I've also seen people take their pointer finger and kind of pull inwards towards you. I don't care how you do it, but I do want you to anchor yourself down, stay steady. First, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go down. And you're gonna go down to try and make about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm gonna show you a trick on how to essentially test that. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our pin tool, we're going to push that into the clay, we're gonna take a finger, we're gonna slide down to where our finger then meets the clay, and we're gonna pull them up together. So I can see I still have about 1/2 inch, which is about where you wanna have it, because now we're going to pull it open and then compress it with a tool. And so that's about a good distance. So I'm gonna add a little more water here, nice and centered. I'm not going super fast, I'm going about medium speed. And I'm going to now take my thumbs and open up that form. Okay. Now that that form is opened up, and now that I see it's about opened as far as I want it, right? And you're only going to be able to go as far as where you've centered, okay? So you're going to stop right about there. Now I'm going to take a tool called a wooden rib. That's just this handy dandy thing right here. And you're going to hold it steady, hold your elbows in nice and tight, and you're going to push this piece up against this wall, okay? And just gentle pressure, you don't need to go super deep. This is just to make sure we have a nice, even foot, nice base to our piece. Every single time we're now messing with the clay, after this point now that we've opened and compressed, we're gonna continuously compress our lip. So the lip is just like this outer edge of our form here, okay? Your left hand is going to have your pointer finger and your thumb in this little N shape, and you're gonna take your right pointer finger and press it up against here. You're gonna lightly squeeze, very light pressure, lightly squeeze that lip and lightly push down with that pointer finger, okay? Now that we're here, we're gonna start raising the walls. So what you're gonna do, and I do recommend beginners use a sponge. Some people don't, I recommend a sponge. Okay. Our goal is to get this wall up higher. So you're going to take your right hand up against the right of the piece. Your left hand is going to just kind of balance that pressure. So you're pushing with that right hand, you're catching that pressure with your left, and you're gonna gradually, around at the same speed that the wheel is slowly spinning, lift your hands up, compress, and repeat. So that's gonna look something like this. And then this is really important, folks. You're going to slowly back out. So I'm not stopping the wheel and jerking my hands away. We're gonna make sure we're keeping this all nice and even, nice and steady, and that's one of the ways we do it. So we're gonna, guess what? Compress that lip, compress that lip. Don't forget to compress that lip. Every single time. Every single time. I joke because people always forget to compress the lip again. And it makes a huge difference. It's a very important step. So when you're first learning out how to do this, it might take you a couple throws. I've been told that all good potters, well-experienced potters, can throw a mug at about 3 to 4 pulls. So that was one. And you know, I am human. I think I did that one a little fast, so if you can see, I don't know if you can see. We've got a lip here that's a little more uneven, right? It's because I was spinning the wheel faster or moving my hands too fast. But this is great, I get to teach you. So we're gonna take a pin tool and we're going to hold it nice and steady, just like this. And we're gonna make this type of motion into our left hand. And we're gonna just slice off that top lip and make it even again. Just like that. You wanna make sure you're not letting water pool there at the bottom. And now I'm gonna give one more good pull. Ideally, you want to kind of be making a little bit of a volcano shape inward. That's gonna be the most stable for you. And you're gonna just be going straight up, kind of grabbing that clay where it's thickest with a little bit more pressure and then slowly easing off that pressure as you lift up. So I'm gonna really grab that foot there. Okay, so that was what, three pulls? We're now going to take our wooden knife, okay? And actually, I do not like this one. We're gonna go with this one. Wooden knife. And all we're gonna do, again, always holding our tools in our hands nice and steady to our body. We're gonna anchor onto each other's hands. I'm gonna take this knife, I'm gonna press it down right along the edge right here. Just like that. Perfect. If you're wanting to have a piece to keep, which depending on the kind of class, right, this is, or type of project you're working on or what have you, you might need to keep this. I really recommend the first few times you throw, cut it in half, see how you did, see if you can learn something from it. Before we get to that, I am going to show you what you can do if you do want to shape it. So we're going to take this is called a metal rib. So we had a wooden rib earlier. This is your metal rib. Okay. And just like we held that sponge where we've got our left hand on the inside bracing it, kind of hold it at a little bit of an angle there, and maybe I can shape this up a little bit. None of us are throwing to stress ourselves out, right? None of us are in the pottery studio to be stressed. So you can do something fun, right? Okay, so now I am going to take my wire tool, and you're gonna take this wire tool, which you can't really see because it's wire, but you're gonna kind of wrap it around your fingers like that. You're going to press your thumbs down on it. Thumbs are on the back. Oh, maybe make sure your wheel is turned off or your pedal's far away, especially if you're a beginner. Don't knock on that. You don't want your wheel to spin right now because we're gonna cut it off. Okay, so we've got our wire tool, press up against here. I've been told that some people find it easier to push away. I always push in, but I have been told that some people have a tendency to pull up when they push in or pull in. So maybe away from you, right? Big thing is you don't want to pull up, right? So you're gonna keep your thumbs on that bat, and then you're gonna take a generous scoop of water, splash that down on the bat, and yep, keep pulling through, and that little piece will come right on off. And you can kind of put it in your hands, go pop that on a wear board, and you're ready to go. We're gonna cut this open so you guys can see. Ha, 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 ha. So you can kind of see, and I like to show when I'm doing these demos, you know, doing some kind of curve, you can see how that creates a thinner point, a weaker point, right? So you want to be cognizant of that, right? You want to be able to have a fairly even wall thickness all the way throughout, which I think this is pretty good. And then when we go into trim, that's when you can take excess things like this off. And I love a really high, thick pedestal. So for me, this is exactly what I'm going for. Well, I hope that that was a solid throwing demo, start to finish, how to throw a cylinder. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wheel throwing.